Okay, I have heard you all. I know I'm overdue for another makeup declutter video. I've gotten the comments, I've gotten the DMs. Today's the day because it just needs to happen. Today I'll be decluttering my makeup drawer that holds my foundations, concealers, primers, and powders. So we're just gonna get straight into it. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name is Miranda. Welcome to my channel where we talk all things budget beauty. If that sounds interesting to you, then become the newest member of the Slashed Squad by hitting subscribe and the bell icon. All right, time for the big reveal. This is, okay, not even opening. That should go to tell you how much I need to declutter this drawer. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. So this is my face drawer. I have foundations and tinted moisturizers in front. I have powders back here, concealers, and primers. Now, I did just do a video talking about like my flawless drugstore foundation routine. I definitely have my favorites and my go-tos in this drawer, and I really want to minimalize this so that I only have products that I really love wearing, that I trust on my skin to look good, and nothing that I am kind of mediocre about. There's just too much going on here. Okay, so let's start out. Obviously, my most worn foundation is right on top, the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Liquid Foundation. I talk about this all the time. Y'all don't need to hear more about it, but I do get asked what my shade is almost every time I put this in a video. So right now I'm using 445, which I believe is vanilla. Absolutely favorite drugstore foundation, best drugstore foundation. We're keeping this one. Now, another one on top that I'm just seeing that I already know is going to be a declutter is the Milani Cream to Powder Foundation. This went so viral earlier this year and I was so excited to try it, but it just did not work for my combo skin. It wasn't even 4 hours before this started like breaking up and sort of separating on my face. Even though it looks great in photos, it looks great when it's first applied, that is just not enough performance for me. On the other hand, I am a really big fan of the Milani Glow Hydrating Skin Tint. This is a super dewy tinted moisturizer. It's 29% squalane. Now this does have very minimal coverage though. This is not something that I would necessarily feel comfortable wearing if I was experiencing a lot of acne or hyperpigmentation, but going into winter, I think that this is going to be something that I end up wearing a lot. It was a little bit too glowy for summer, but especially in the desert where it's dry, this is something that I know my skin will love in the upcoming months. Okay, can we talk about Colourpop Pretty Fresh Foundation? Because I love the finish of this foundation. I think it looks beautiful, but I cannot, for the life of me, find a shade that works for me. So this one is medium 100W. This is actually the second shade that I've tried. No, actually my third shade that I've tried in this foundation, and they all just pull way too warm on me. No matter what I do, every single shade I bring home ends up oxidizing orange. I've heard from a couple friends that they have this issue too, which is so unfortunate. And honestly, like I can't use the foundation. It looks ridiculous on me. So this is definitely going to be a declutter. Now, right up here, we have something that I actually haven't really tested out yet. This is the Michelle Dermaceuticals Sunshield Liquid SPF 50. Again, it's like a tinted moisturizer. I have been getting questions about non-chemical sunscreen tinted moisturizers, and so that's why I wanted to try this out. I just want to show you the coverage really quickly. It's not a ton, but it's definitely enough to like even stuff out. We'll see how it looks on my face. Like I said, I haven't actually put this on yet, but it's just very subtle. Also, I kind of just want to get this out of the way. On Instagram, there's been like people commenting that I have hair on the back of my hand. Like, yeah, I'm a mammal. That's kind of what happens. And I'm also Latina, so all of my body hair is really dark. Okay, next up, I have this Misguided Meet Your Match Demi Matte Foundation. I tried this when I did a whole brand video about the new Misguided makeup collection. It is a totally vegan and cruelty-free makeup line on the Misguided site. I actually really enjoyed this foundation. It just could use a primer. I wore it on my bare skin, and you know, it actually did pretty well on a really hot day in Vegas when I was sweating. So I know with primer or powder, this would be really, really beautiful. It does say medium coverage, but I found that it was buildable up to full. And this was actually the perfect shade for me. What was this called? 7. I don't think they had actual names, but at the time, this was like a perfect shade for my face. My arm and hands are a little bit darker than my face. So I'm gonna keep that. All right, next up right on top, we have the Revlon Colorstay Light Cover Foundation. This sounded really nice to me actually. Light coverage, SPF 35, and a 12-hour natural finish. But that finish, I don't know, it just did not look great on my skin. It wasn't long before it sort of looked like it was breaking up, and it stayed sitting on top of my skin instead of really blending into it. It sort of felt like everything was just floating on the surface. So this, I do think I'm going to have to declutter, unfortunately. But I've heard great things about this from people in my drugstore makeup Facebook group. So I really do think that it is dependent on your skin type. I just don't know which skin type this really works for. So if you like this, let me know in the comments below what your skin type is. Next up, I've got the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Foundation. This is a really old bottle, so I am going to be decluttering this. The jury is out on whether or not I would repurchase this because I feel like I can get very, very similar coverage with the L'Oreal Infallible, and this has more of a lightweight and breathable feel on my skin. Plus you have the SPF. I mean, this is just a very heavy foundation. I think that it looks beautiful, especially in photos, and that coverage definitely lasts. It is a full coverage foundation. I just think like if I can get similar results with something that feels a little more comfortable, then that's definitely what I'm going to go for. So this particular bottle I am going to be decluttering, and we'll see if I ever come back to it. Okay, so I do see the L'Oreal Skin Paradise. Again, this is a tinted moisturizer. I've done a full-on video about this, so I will leave that link below. I have 3 tubes in here and I certainly don't need them all. Okay, so I have light 3, medium 1, and medium 2. I believe in my video I was testing out medium 1, and the one thing that I did not like about this formula, literally the only thing, was that it does oxidize and become warmer throughout the day. So while medium 1 started at my perfect shade, it ended up looking a little too dark on me. So light 3 is actually the one that sort of settles into my skin tone. And like I said, I have a whole video on this, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but basically the formula is made up of mostly water. So it really just sinks into the skin. It has almost like a gel consistency. It's really hard to explain, but once this sinks into your skin, it just leaves this really nice even pigment on top that evens out everything. And honestly, I feel like you get more than light coverage with this, and it does give you a really fresh, dewy look. I also do have a video dedicated to drugstore tinted moisturizers and applying them, and you can see the before and after. So go check that out if you are looking for one that will work for you, because I have recommendations for all skin types in that video. Speaking of, this is another one that I actually really, really like, although I think this tube is ready to be thrown out. This is the Catrice Clean ID Hydro BB Cream. Now this is, again, a vegan formula, non-comedogenic, very, very friendly for acne-prone skin. I just think Catrice in general does not get the hype it deserves, and this is such a great product if you really, really don't want a ton of coverage at all. Maybe you are just not a foundation wearer, but you want just, I don't know, a little bit of brightening, a little bit of evening. This is that perfect product. And it feels so good on the skin, incredibly hydrating. This is like almost a perfect skin match. You can see I have the shade medium warm. And this again sort of feels like that jelly consistency too. I don't know if jelly is the right word for it. It's just so thin. It doesn't feel like a cream. So here you can see it is blending in. It is almost invisible, but when it's, you know, on your face and not necessarily the back of your hand, you can definitely see some blurring going on. So this I think is also in that video if you want to see the before and after. Oh, and sorry, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm going to declutter this tube, but I probably will pick this up again once I finish these two, because honestly, I don't need that many tinted moisturizers in this drawer. Okay, so y'all know that I love budget beauty. Drugstore beauty is my main focus on this channel, but every now and again I will test out higher end products. So that way, not only can I recommend them to you during sales, but I can also find dupes. One foundation though that has not been dupeable yet and is probably one of my favorite, like regardless of price point, is the Lorac Pro Soft Focus Foundation. And honestly, for like a higher end foundation, this is still not that expensive. I believe it's in the $35-ish range. This is the most lightweight full coverage foundation I have ever put on. It literally looks like it's just your skin, but completely even and blurred and covered. So I do kind of save this for special events now, because it just looks so flawless and it stays looking like that all day. And you know, that's not to say that my favorite from the drugstore doesn't. If anything, I would say that this is probably the closest dupe. This is a little bit thinner though, the Lorac one, and I don't know how they packed so much coverage in such a thin formula. So here you can see, I mean, I really did not pump a lot on the back of my hand, and see how much it spread. So I did not even need that much. So even this kind of thinner tube lasts forever. So I'm keeping that one, obviously. Now, on the other hand, this really isn't anything to say about the actual foundation. This just isn't my shade, which is unfortunate. They sent this to me. This is in 30WY, which I'm assuming is like warm yellow, the Urban Decay Stay Naked foundation. A lot of people say that these are like the same formula. I find this to be a lot more matte, but it is supposed to have like the same concept of being a weightless, full coverage, up to 24-hour foundation. They make all the same claims. This one just has much more of that kind of powdery flat matte finish, but you can see compared to everything else I've swatched today, this is just way too light. Okay, another foundation that I see I have 2 bottles of is the Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation. Again, Catrice, so freaking underrated, because I feel like this was one of the best releases of 2021. Like, yeah, I'm saying it. This is an incredible foundation that looks so beautiful on my skin. I am actually wearing it today. It's hydrating without being dewy. So it feels really good on the skin, but it's not gonna give you that like shiny appearance. So the reason I have 2 is obviously I was kind of testing out the shades, and the one that matches me perfectly is 40 Neutral Hazel. For some reason, it's kind of hard to find neutral undertones in drugstore foundations. A lot of them are either warm or cool or pink, you know what I mean? But I have a very neutral undertone that can sometimes lean yellow, but that doesn't mean I want to look yellow. And this is like the perfect shade match for me. So I'm only going to be keeping this one. Okay, here is another foundation that I used to really love, but there's always been something a little weird about it. Let me explain. This is the Covergirl True Blend Matte Made Foundation. This is a really great matte full coverage foundation. It feels pretty comfortable and it does last all day. There's one thing that I've noticed though, and this is actually kind of a running theme with Covergirl liquid foundations that I've tried in recent years. Because this is a mattifying foundation, I think like their technology or how it's so matte is it has like little mattifying, I don't know, balls in here, but you can end up seeing them on the skin as you blend it out. And I'm not sure if it'll happen here, but it's like as I work this into my skin, I started to see a lot of white flakes, which I'm assuming are like the mattifying particles, but then I'm like brushing them off constantly. You can start to see, I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick it up. So I don't know, that's just been something weird that I've noticed with this, and then the Healthy Vitalist foundation, which they don't make anymore, but that was the first time that I noticed it. When you blend with a sponge, you'll start to see like little mattifying particles kind of separate from the foundation. In general, the other thing that I'm not necessarily a fan of anymore are those really flat matte foundations. They just don't really work with my skin anymore now that I'm getting, you know, fine lines. And being in a desert climate, I don't really need a full-on mattifying foundation. I would rather use my Fresh Finish foundations and then set with a powder, so that way my skin doesn't just look super flat. Speaking of really matte foundations though, this is again going to be a declutter. However, that is not a reflection of how this foundation works. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation. This is a drugstore favorite among people who have oily skin. It is just a little bit too matte for me now. I feel like my skin is very much the epitome of combo. I do get very oily in my T-zone, but then my jawline, my cheeks get pretty dry, and that's where this starts to look a little too matte for me, even though it does really, really well in my T-zone. But this is an amazing full coverage longwear foundation, so if you do have normal to oily skin, this is for sure what I would recommend, especially in summer and especially under masks, because this does a really good job at not transferring, and actually this one does too, despite the fact that this has a more natural finish. But you know, L'Oreal, I think they just kind of have the corner on drugstore foundation, in my opinion. And on that note, we have the newer release from the L'Oreal Infallible Foundation line. This is the 24-hour Fresh Wear Foundation in a powder. I do have an entire video about this, so I won't go too deep into it. This is the shade Golden Beige, which I will admit is a tiny bit too dark for me. But at the time, this was so hard to find. Actually, it matches my hand, but I swear it's too dark for my face. At the time, this was so hard to find because this went so viral online. But this is probably my favorite powder foundation because it does give you a really nice amount of even medium coverage. It does say full coverage. I disagree. I would say it's medium, especially as someone who has acne and hyperpigmentation. This isn't going to cover it all the way. Again, I will just let you watch my video and wear test of it. Another one that I think I'm going to declutter. Now, I don't remember if this one actually gave me that same problem. The CoverGirl Outlast Active Foundation. This is a 24-hour foundation with SPF 20. Honestly, I don't really have any complaints about this. I bought it specifically for my sweat-proof drugstore foundation test video, and it did pretty well. However, it ended up looking a lot more shiny than the other foundations that I was trying. But it definitely did not like sweat off the face, so that was nice. It's a good option if you want something that is not necessarily matte, but you are going to be sweating. This is SPF 20. Now in contrast, I believe L'Oreal's is 25. Because this one does really well sweating too, honestly. I have worn it to the gym just to test. So that kind of just makes me want to declutter this because I like this better. And that's literally the point of this particular declutter is I don't need products that I'm on the fence about. If I like something else more, then that's what's going to stay. So I think this one's going to be a declutter. I love how we totally went full circle on that foundation. I did not know where we were going with that one, but I'm glad we got to that decision. Oh my gosh, wait, okay. I just wiped off that foundation and I'm seeing one of the white specks. Can you see that? That's from the foundation. Like, what is that? I don't understand. Okay, so we've got my Believe Beauty Skin Finish Foundation, another one that is so beautiful. This absolutely rivals high-end foundation. This is $5, but it is only available at Dollar General. Believe Beauty is an exclusive Dollar General brand, so it does make it harder to find for some people. And in fact, my local Dollar General closed during the pandemic, so that's incredibly sad. I literally do not have anywhere besides online now to pick up Believe Beauty stuff. I think I still have like a little bit of product left in this bottle, so I will use it up because again, this is such a beautiful natural finish foundation. But just the fact that this performs so well at the price point does kind of make this a star on its own and something that I do want to keep in my collection and continue to recommend. And I am the shade Buff. This is going to be a declutter just because it's literally almost done. And this doesn't necessarily give me as much coverage as I really want to. It's one of those middle of the road foundations. And to be completely honest, I would rather use a full coverage foundation for when I need the coverage or something light coverage and really fresh when I don't. For me, medium coverage foundations are just kind of like, super have a use for them. If anything, I would just mix a little moisturizer in with my full coverage foundation. With all that said, this is a decent foundation. I just don't like it more or as much as the other ones that I've kept so far. The Revlon Candid Photo Ready Natural Finish Anti-Pollution Foundation. Does this even have SPF in it though? Anti-blue light, anti-pollution, antioxidant, oil-free. Again, it's a decent formula, but I just like others better. All right, we are almost down to our last few foundations, and then we'll get back into these 3 bins. So this is the Physicians Formula Butter Believe It Foundation and Concealer. You know, I never noticed that it actually said foundation plus concealer. I always just thought it said foundation. I had a really good first impression of this. I did a wear test among a lot of other new drugstore makeup at the time, and I am gonna hold on to this just because I haven't really had a chance to test it thoroughly since then, and I don't feel like I have a super solid opinion of it beyond that first day. So I do want to give this a little bit more time in my collection for me to kind of form a better opinion on it. I know there were a couple people who wanted me to do a video wear test of this. There were just other products that I wanted to focus on more, but maybe I will revisit that video idea. Let me know in the comments if you still want to see that. Now this is a relatively new purchase. This is the NYX Total Control Pro Drop Foundation. This is a new version of their drop foundation. Before it was not pro. And I did end up actually really liking this, and I was surprised because it did not have great reviews online, specifically the new pro version. People felt like the new formula didn't work for them, but I really liked it. I liked how it felt on my skin alone, and I also really like how it does when I mix it in with my daily moisturizer. So I'm gonna keep that. And finally, this is one of my favorite lighter coverage foundations. I would say actually this is probably a solid medium, and I know that I just said like, oh, I don't really like medium coverage, but I love how this looks on the face. It's incredibly natural and fresh looking, and it has a trifecta of protection. So there's RPF, which is blue light protection from like all of the screens we look at all day, PPF, which is pollution protection, and then SPF 30. I feel like because this is just not a run-of-the-mill medium coverage foundation, like there is actually more benefits to it. It's almost like a BB cream. So I might just keep this to finish. Since I'm almost there, it makes no sense to just throw this little bit away when I still really like this formula. Okay, so there is one product that actually kind of escaped this basket. This is the new CoverGirl Outlast Extreme Wear Pressed Powder. This is a relatively new product, and I did just do a video about this. It is incredibly confusing because I honestly do not know whether or not this is meant to be used as a foundation or a setting powder. I feel like it would be a phenomenal setting powder, and it is a less than ideal foundation. So I'm not gonna get too much into it more than that because like I said, I just did a video on this. So check that out. I am gonna keep this solely for the setting powder purposes though. I will not be using this again as a foundation. Okay, now the last thing in this bin, although it's not a foundation, this is a primer that, I don't know, got pushed when we had that drawer snafu. This is the Hard Candy Smoothing Primer Balm. This was kind of like their response to e.l.f.'s Putty Primer. I feel like it is supposed to have a very similar texture. However, it did absolutely nothing to extend the wear of my foundation. If anything, it actually caused it to break up in places that I know it wouldn't have otherwise. So I'm gonna definitely be decluttering this. Okay, so let me just move this basket for now. And then on this side here, we have 2 powders that again have escaped their rightful place. So the AOA Perfect Setting Powder. This is my absolute favorite setting powder ever. It's only $1 on shopmissa.com, and it just seriously rivals the Makeup Forever HD powder. I mean, honestly, I feel like I get incredibly similar results. This is like what, $40 I want to say, and this is $1. Now, obviously the Makeup Forever one also has incredibly beautiful and easy to use packaging. Not so much with the AOA one. I believe it's just a plastic. Yeah, it's just a plastic sifter, and most of the time I have like a really solid pile of powder on top of it where I can't even see the sifter. I cannot complain for $1. It is incredibly finely milled, as you can kind of see it sort of billowed out of the packaging a little bit. But this just totally smooths over foundation and pores. Absolutely love it. So obviously that's going to be a keep. Now, speaking of this Makeup Forever powder, I've had this, I want to say, for like 4 years now. I believe this is the exact jar that I used on my wedding day. I'm not sure if powder is necessarily a product that expires. It doesn't have that little like open icon where it says like 6 or 12 or 24. There is a lot number though, so it'd be interesting to look this up. I'm not sure how if I'm supposed to be using this still. One thing that this has over Makeup Forever, this is a notorious powder where if you apply too much, you will get flashback. If you keep it really thin, you won't have that issue. With this, I've never, ever experienced flashback. I'm just gonna hold on to this just for now. This is a product that I've spoken about before, and I think I am gonna end up decluttering it or giving it to a friend, because while I absolutely love this formula in terms of the powder, very similarly, it's incredibly fine and soft. It blends into the skin just flawlessly. This packaging is so annoying that it literally is what is going to make me declutter this product. Not only is the square packaging just a little bit awkward, especially when I'm trying to travel, it's just a bulky jar, but the top is like really hard to screw back in place once you've opened it. It like takes lining it up perfectly, and then even then it's so annoying when I'm trying to use that. I have broken nails and I've wasted so much powder with all of like the movement pluming out. So this I might actually just pass on because again, it's a great product, but I'm not patient enough for this packaging. Okay, so some other powders I have. The Urban Decay All Nighter powder. This is a product that comes up a lot during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty sale, and I will always recommend it. This is a great kind of counterpart to the All Nighter setting spray, which, you know, we all know and love, just in powder form. So if you want to really mattify, and this also waterproofs your makeup. And this has really, really done me well in humid climates. So tried and true, it works. I'm gonna keep that. Now this one, on the other hand, again, you know, hard candy complexion or face makeup, I've just have not had great luck with it. This is a translucent no flash powder, Sheer Envy. I did not find this to control shine at all throughout the day. Like, my makeup didn't look awful, but I was just shiny as if I hadn't even powdered my makeup. So really, I didn't find it to do anything. Now, this product is sort of a drugstore version of the All Nighter powder. It is a waterproof setting powder. It's supposed to waterproof and fix your makeup. I don't think they make this anymore. And so I think this is a really, really old product. I cannot find this anywhere. They used to sell it at Ulta, and then now I can't find it on the brand's website. So that's unfortunate because I did like it, but just knowing how old this is, and see, this does have one of those icons to toss after 24 months. It's definitely been over 24 months. Although powders, I mean, personally, I'm not as strict in terms of powders with those expiration dates because bacteria doesn't grow as quickly or as rampantly in powders as in like liquid and creams. At least that's my understanding. Do not quote me on that. This last product is a primer that I guess just kind of fell over onto this side. The e.l.f. Acne Fighting Putty Primer. So I did test this in a video of new drugstore releases and I was not impressed. I didn't necessarily feel like it made my makeup look better at the end of the day or stay in place better, which, you know, I understand that this has a little bit more benefits to it other than like priming your face for makeup because it's supposed to treat your acne and color correct. But like at the end of the day, if my primer doesn't keep my makeup looking good, I don't want to use it. Next, let's go into concealers. By the way, I got these bins at Dollar Tree and they are so perfect for the Alex drawers. Like they're the perfect height, and then you can like hook them onto each other so that they're connected. Really, really cool. Anyway, concealers. So I have actually been using this one a lot lately. This is the LA Colors Conceal It Concealer, the green one for color correcting. I have had some breakouts that I decided to pick at, which made them very red and inflamed. So this is helping me color correct. I think it does a great job. I do think that it's sort of a dupe for the LA Girl concealer, and LA Colors and LA Girl are made by the same people. So I'm gonna keep that. And then I've also been using the orange version. This is the first time I've ever used orange color corrector to help conceal kind of the purple tones in my under eye bags. So that's just something I'm still experimenting with. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep that as well. Now I do have 3 of these Makeup Revolution Eye Bright concealers, and only one of them really matches me. I believe it's medium light. This is such a great under eye concealer. It's just the right consistency where you get pretty much full coverage, but it's still thin and very blendable and hydrating under the eye. Is this the one? No, this is fair. That's probably way too light. Okay, here's medium yellow. Oh, you know what? That looks, how is that a medium shade? Let's try fair. Oh, that's even worse. Okay, so then maybe I will only keep medium light. And then I do have 2 of my absolute favorite e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealers. I am almost done with both of them. I use these shades pretty equally. One is medium peach, which is what I use to help conceal acne, and I've been mixing this in with my green concealer. I do have a YouTube short about how I color correct, so check that out. And then I use light beige for my under eye just because it is slightly lighter. So I'll just go ahead and swatch these because I consistently get comments asking me about the shades that I'm using. So that is medium peach. So that's more for like skin concealing, and then this is for under eye concealing. The Colourpop No Filter Concealer. Now this is not a bad concealer at all. I just prefer the e.l.f. Hydrating to it. This does have kind of a demi-matte natural finish, and it does a decent job at not creasing under the eye. I don't think I can use this shade very well under the eyes anymore. Yeah, that is almost like my skin color. That is not an under eye shade for me. How did I ever use this under my eyes? Do you see how it has this orange undertone and it just gets warmer as it sets? So frustrated with Colourpop face makeup. Okay, this is just a hella old tube. The L'Oreal Full Wear. This was like part of the original launch with the Infallible Freshwater foundation. They have very, very similar finishes, so they work well together. I feel like it's a little heavy for my taste in concealer. This is a decent under eye shade for me, but because of the consistency, this isn't my favorite for under my eyes because I have deep creases under both my eyes and this will crease in them. It's just not one that really won me over. Now again, just like the foundation from this line, the Urban Decay Stay Naked Concealer, this shade is slightly too light for me, but it's like light enough that it's almost unusable. However, I did compare this concealer to the last one I just talked about from L'Oreal, and I would say that these are dupes. And also consider, you know, L'Oreal owns Urban Decay, so the formulas may be more similar than we think. But again, since filming that dupes video, I haven't used this because the shade is just ridiculous. Now we've got my Tarte Shape Tape. I do want to hold on to this because I like to compare this to new drugstore concealers, considering this is one of the top, you know, higher end concealers. So I'll keep that. The shade that I have is 22N Light Neutral. I really like Shape Tape because you get that full coverage, but the formula itself is very thin. This feels more comfortable than the L'Oreal Freshwater, even though they do have the same amount of coverage. Now, one that I am definitely going to be decluttering, and I know this is kind of sacrilege as a drugstore beauty guru because this is such a cult favorite, the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Eraser. I just can't get it to work for me. This does not do well under my eye eyes or in really any part of my face. If I'm going to be really honest with you, I just find that it separates. It starts looking kind of crackly. It goes on looking flawless. But then a few hours in, I look really tired with this on. Like it just makes my skin look tired. And then I have the Lorac Concealer. This is the Pro Soft Focus Longwear Concealer that goes with the foundation. So I'm going to keep that. This is a pretty old tube, so it's probably time to declutter it. However, this is a really great concealer, the CoverGirl True Blend Undercover Concealer. This was like the original dupe to Shape Tape when it first came out. This was so popular. And then e.l.f. came out with their Camo Concealer, which was so similar to this, but like half the price. And so I feel like the Camo Concealer really stole the CoverGirl's thunder. So yeah, either way, this is a really old tube, so it would be time to get rid of it. And finally, this was part of an Ulta 21 Days of Beauty, I want to say like 2 years ago. I want to say 2019. It's the Shape Tape Glow Wand. So it's like a glowy version of Shape Tape that's great for either highlighting or using under the eyes. Now, as you can see, when I just pulled this out, one thing that I hate about this product is that there's like no, or I guess there is a stopper, but it really does nothing to take off excess product. So when you take this out of the tube, like in what universe am I going to need that much product? It is a little messy. However, this product is so freaking beautiful. It really does add a nice wash of coverage, definitely less coverage than the original Shape Tape, but you get that glow as well. There is also this like weird sponge thing that I've never used on it. But in general, I've actually preferred using this as a liquid highlight versus a concealer because you do kind of get that barely there glow. It just looks like it's part of your skin. So I am going to keep it for that purpose, not necessarily to use it as a concealer. Okay, all we've got left are the primers, and I do have a feeling that a lot of these are going to get decluttered. As you know, if you've been watching me for, any longer than 2 years, I had a really long no primer moment where, especially because, I started using this foundation. This really doesn't need primer. This looks beautiful on the skin without primer. It lasts all day, even while sweating without primer. You really don't need it for most of what primer would offer. But started aging, started getting more obvious expression lines and fine lines, and my pores did start becoming a little bit more enlarged. So with that said, I have sort of been exploring the world of primers again. Now, I don't like all of these. This has been my exploration. I am only going to keep the ones that I feel like work for me. Number one being the Maybelline Master Prime. This is such a great, basic, but effective drugstore primer, particularly if you are looking for the blurring and pore minimizing aspects. And this does keep my foundation in place and looking fresher longer, even though, like I said, this does great on its own. But in terms of like staying out of my pores and my fine lines, this really does amplify that performance. Now on the high end side, this is my absolute favorite primer, Benefit the Porefessional. There's a reason why this is a bestseller. Why I like this is actually the texture. It's very unique for a primer, and it really does just smooth over and into the skin, and the finish is just absolutely beautiful under foundation. So I am going to keep that. Now, one that I actually just discovered, and I did use this in my Selena Gomez makeup routine video. This is the new Milani No Pore Zone Mattifying Primer. This has lily and bamboo extracts. It's supposed to nourish the skin, and it does have like this silky texture, and it mattifies without drying out your skin. Like it stays feeling really comfortable under your makeup. You can see it's almost like a gel consistency. It rubs in almost feeling like more of a skincare product than a primer. But you do get that really smooth finish and base for your foundation. So yeah, I'm gonna keep that. This is like a brand new tube. All right, this next product I'm on the fence about, you know, I did make that vow to not keep things I'm on the fence about. The Flower Beauty Supernova Celestial Priming Whip. I feel like this is a little gimmicky. Don't kill me, Drew. It's just a little hard for me to use in terms of the dispensing and the whip texture. It kind of like expands like mousse. I feel like it's just a little hard to control how much you actually dispense. And when I used this in my Flower Beauty wear test video, it was like a full face of Flower Beauty, I did say that, you know, my foundation looked great at the end of the day. I don't necessarily know if that was the foundation versus the primer. I will say, like, it feels good on the skin. I just don't really know how much it's really doing versus the fun of putting it on. This I could probably let go. Liquid powder, pore blurring makeup serum. The pink clay in this is not my favorite. You know, clay obviously is a very mattifying product, and with my combo skin, that's not necessarily something that I want all over. I could always, like, you know, multi-prime and use different types of primers in different areas, but like, I don't want to do that. Okay, moving right along. This primer is okay. It's really nothing to write home about. The Catrice Goodbye Pores, like, for the price, I think it's less than $5. It's definitely decent. I just feel like I've already kept primers that work better, so I'm gonna set this aside. This I'm definitely keeping. As far as, okay, actually, hold on, let me just talk about these together. These are priming oils, which I have found that I really like during winter because they do just offer that extra kind of skincare boost. So the first one that I ever tried was this Physicians Formula Protect Your Prime Oil, and this has all of those same protection benefits that the Natural Defense Foundation has. So the blue light, the pollution, and this also has SPF in it. This is just pretty old, and especially because it is an SPF product. Let me see, expires 21 SE. Well, does that mean 2021? This one is still relatively new though, the Pixie Rose Essence Oil. I used this as a primer with the Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation, and this is like a dry skin dream combo. This looked so good on my skin all day, so this is definitely going to be a combo I'll be using as it kind of cools down here. But this really just kind of makes my skin look smooth and plump. Maybelline Baby Skin, I originally bought this to do a throwback makeup video, sort of like my routine in 2012. It was one of the first primers I remember being available at the drugstore. But since then, obviously, they've really elevated their products. They've given us this primer, which is so much better from Maybelline. There's really no reason for me to keep this except maybe to do one more throwback video. But I don't really like this product, and I actually feel like my skin doesn't tolerate it well either. Whereas this one has kind of a thinner consistency and it doesn't clog my pores. Okay, finally, last product in the drawer. It is the Believe Beauty Pretty and Primed Stay Put Makeup Primer. This is an interesting, more lotion texture, and sometimes that just feels fresher than kind of the silicone type primers. This really does rub in like a moisturizer, which I really like. I don't necessarily think it keeps my makeup on like hours more than it would without, but it is something that I reach for depending on how my skin is feeling. All right, so here is the finished decluttered face makeup drawer. Obviously, I still have a lot of foundations and concealers and everything for the average person, but considering that this is my job, I do think that we've really minimalized this drawer well, and considering that I can actually like close it and open it, and we definitely have room to try out new releases as they come out for the rest of the year and into 2022. We did officially declutter more than half this drawer, just barely. We got rid of 30 items and there are 29 still inside. I don't know about you, but I think that was a pretty successful makeup declutter. Let me know in the comments below which drawer I should declutter next. Should it be my eyeshadow palettes or my liquid lipsticks / lip crayons? Those would both be doozies. Today's shout out goes to JJ. Thanks for being a member of the Slashed Squad, and join me over in this video next where I test the Covergirl Outlast Extreme Wear Powder all day. Is it a foundation or is it a setting powder? You tell me. I'll see you over there. Bye.